Lance Appleby was every bit the all-around good Australian bloke that charmed everyone he met. And like most 28-year-olds from the coastline of South Australia, Lance loved to surf. He'd grown up around the waters on the Eyre Peninsula all his life. And ever since he'd moved away from his hometown to start a carpentry apprenticeship, he took every excuse he could to visit home just to get back to the waves. Not that he'd spent the last 2 years away just pining over the waters where he felt so comfortable. No, Lance was much too bright and sociable to let his feet grow roots. He'd signed up to the footy club in his new city, made friends, and was quickly proving that he was an apprentice worth his mentor's time. A natural leader, friendly, and just genuinely a nice guy, Lance didn't allow life to get too serious. Sure, he worked hard during the week, sweating up a storm, but on weekends it was all about a good game of footy, a bit of hiking, and, if work allowed it, a quick stop back home so he could give his mother a quick peck on the cheek before hopping off to his favorite hometown beaches, armed with only a surfboard and a song in his heart. Lance had gotten a little more time off than usual to spend Christmas with his family and to usher in 2025 surrounded by his family. He'd gotten in a little time to get the sand under his feet, but with all the relatives and family activities that overshadowed the holiday season, Lance hadn't gotten nearly as much time out there in the water as he would have wanted to. A few hours here, a morning there, but never a good long day just dedicated solely to the sea like he used to do in the old days. He was forced to wait until the 2nd of January when most of the loud uncles and grandparents had left the family home before he could really get a good day of surfing in, and Lance planned on milking that day for all that he could. He was out of the house before the sun had risen completely and caught his first wave within 40 minutes of backing out of the driveway. Unfortunately for Lance, the circus that comes with family get-togethers caused him to completely forget to check the local news and reports. All his life, Lance and every other surfer around Granite's beach had made a habit of checking up on any shark sightings and attacks. The reality is that Australia is one of the most deadly waters in the world, and by now, locals are so vigilant about safety that they'd rather drive an hour away to catch a wave than dare swim in an area where sharks have been sighted. Not only were there reports of a 16-footer great white in the water, just that morning, a local fisherman sent out an alert that there was an aggressive great white at Granite's beach, the exact spot where Lance was surfing that day. And he wasn't the only one. Granite's beach is a popular place for surfers, jet skiers, swimmers, kayakers, and all things related to water sports. There were a few more families with young children around that day than usual, but that was to be expected, with the holiday season and all of them had gotten so caught up in the festivities that they weren't aware of the sightings either. The beachgoers didn't know it, but the lifesavers of Australia, the beach patrollers, were already working their way around the beach line, putting up warning signs. They just hadn't reached Granite's beach yet. If they had, maybe we wouldn't be hearing about this terrible tragedy today. Lance, ever sociable, had a chat with some of the surfers, discussing the weather and the currents in the forecast for the next few days. And he even ran into some old friends when he went up to the line of shops for a spot of lunch around noon. But he didn't hang around long. Half the day was still left and there were plenty more waves to catch. And Lance couldn't have picked a better time to return to the waves. Just as he paddled out again and turned his board at the ready, a swell rose up to meet him. Lance had been on the water long enough to know this was going to be a near-perfect ride. And so did the thing beneath him. That very 16-foot great white that the fisherman spotted that morning had its eyes on Lance the moment he started to paddle out. It followed silently beneath the surface, matching Lance's pace as he paddled, and when the wave rose with Lance on it, the beast picked up speed. The speed with which Lance rode bought him a few seconds of time, but like all swells, this one had to foam out too. Lance completed the line, riding smooth and straight until the very end. The jet skiers he'd met earlier stopped their conversation to watch him, appreciating what was obviously a remarkable show of athleticism. When the force of the wave foamed out, he lightly hopped off the board in a well-practiced dive. When he climbed back onto his board, the master of the deep was already beneath him again. Lance barely got 3 strokes in to paddle back to the deeper water again when the ocean around him exploded. In a shower of white and blue, the colossal gray form shot out from below with a pinpoint accurate grab. Lance and his board were inside its jaws the moment its snout was out in the open air, firmly impaled through his right thigh and his abdomen. Together, they were catapulted several feet into the air. If it weren't for the now stark red trail of blood and entrails that they left in their wake, their arc could have been described as almost graceful. The animal took Lance and his board down with another almighty splash, and the jet skiers more than 100 yards away could clearly see the pool of spreading red where the man and the shark had been just a second before. They wasted no time in getting there, yelping for help as they went. 2 men raced toward the scene while a third sped off to the shore to get help. When they reached the place, the ocean had already turned the water from red to pink, and within seconds had returned to its crystal clear blue, almost like there wasn't just a horrific attack 10 seconds ago. They went back and forth, desperately scanning the water for any sign of life or limb, but all that was left was a surfboard with a comically shaped bite mark clearly taken out of it, bobbing lazily in the current. Authorities arrived in minutes, and soon the beach was teeming with boats, more jet skis, and even a few drones. An hour into the search, and everyone had to admit the harsh reality that this was no longer a rescue mission. This had become a recovery attempt, and that recovery stretched on for 2 whole weeks. But nothing. Lance was just gone. The great waters and its most fearsome predator had claimed its first victim for 2025. Lance, it turns out, had more friends than his parents had even realized. Hundreds came out to search for him. More arrived to lay down flowers, and the attendance at his wake was so huge that it had to be held out in the open air, because no building could accommodate the sheer mass of people that came to mourn the handsome young man who made everyone he met smile. His surfboard was put on display instead of a coffin, since there were no remains to bury. But then again, you don't need a coffin or an urn to remember a man of infinite love and numerous talents. But Lance would only be the first of many. Australia, it seems, has already kicked off the year with an unusually high amount of attacks and fatalities, and we're afraid to report that this is already looking up to be a record-breaking year for all the wrong reasons.